Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. This is the show where we take a look at every classic Doctor Who story, plus a bunch of Big Finish audio dramas, one episode a day, 7 days a week, and today on the 23rd of January 2019, we're taking a look at an episode that can't really be described as part of any of Big Finish's range. It's officially classified under the bonus releases. It was released as a subscriber bonus in 2013, I believe, possibly 2014, and it's the only one to star the fourth Doctor, and Louise Jameson, as played by Tom Baker, and Leela as played by Louise Jameson. And it's also the only fourth Doctor bonus release there really is. And it sort of fits in between Series 1 and 3 of the fourth Doctor Adventures, along with the next range that we're going to be covering after this release. It is Night of the Stormcrow. So today we're going to take a look at Part 1. Night of the Stormcrow is the first story, and this is notable, to be written by Mr. Marc Platt. Marc Platt, of course, rose to prominence in Doctor Who circles by writing the TV serial Ghostlight, a seventh Doctor story we will get to, hopefully, eventually, way down the line, and one of my favorite stories of all time. He also wrote one of my favorite books of all time, Lung Barrow, and he's also written consistently for Big Finish, so this isn't the only time we will see his name. Actually, in the next couple of videos, we will actually see his name again, because he adapted the next couple of stories from scripts. But as a Marc Platt idea, he's usually a very big idea man. There's usually a lot of script ideas, coming down from his scripts. Usually horror. This one takes sort of the base Under Siege format, except does it with a bit more cosmic level horror. The titular Stormcrow is this anomaly coming from a galaxy out in space. That appears every night at 4 a.m. that these astronomers have noticed. They've noticed this gas, this thing just out in space. They don't know what it is. They're on an observatory on a secluded island. The island's got a village on it, and they call it the Stormcrow. But what's weird is this story itself takes place with the Doctor and Leela arriving, and, well, weird stuff starts going on. The Stormcrow, it's essentially alive. They realize that it must be alive because it has been diverging from its path of point of origin just too much to, not be a living being. So they obviously realize this thing's alive, so we need to figure out what it is. It turns out it's getting not only getting closer to Earth, but it's getting close enough to Earth that it really starts to affect people emotionally. It sort of instills this sense of nihilism that the world's not worth it. The world's, it's a horrible place. It's going to end. We are basically, sort of this feeling, not just sort of an ultimate feeling of dread and despair, like that death is, just around the corner and it's going to come and take us all. Not a very positive emotion. It's a very, very dark emotion that people are feeling because of this quote-unquote Stormcrow, which no one can quite tell what it is. It just sort of exists, and, it sort of does a flyby every night for him. But then it starts to manipulate the day and night. It makes the island go to night, so it starts to attack. And a lot of this episode is just really the Doctor and Leela trying to figure out what this thing is, and there really isn't an immediate answer. The episode is about 30 minutes long. I mean, it's split into two parts. Obviously, this is just part one. But as such, you don't really get an explanation as to what the Stormcrow is in this episode. We get it threatening. It's a very threatening creature. It's something... It's something that comes out of the dark and comes to sort of kill people and hurt them and cause pain and suffering, and it's very not only is it very dark, it's a very, very deep, dark story that I love these types of stories because it's very much like, oh gosh, what is this monster? What could it possibly want with us? Is anybody safe from it? And, that just playing up that aspect of the story is what really, makes the story really solid and just a good story. It plays up the idea that this is a monster and this is, something to be feared. It's also something, sort of indescribable. It sort of takes sort of a Lovecraftian sort of theme, being like the horror from outer space that no one really knows what it is. What does it want? What could it possibly want? It's not something human. It's something completely alien and just, not at all, just something that, what could it, not only what could it possibly want, but, why is it here? what is it? What does it just want to kill humanity, or is it here for maybe a benign purpose? We don't know. And it's like an idea like that that's just really powerful and gets to the heart of just just the story itself. It really knows that like, hey, this is it allows Tom Baker to do be a bit more serious in the role as the Doctor here. He sells the role like, hey, this isn't normal. This is not a good thing. It's a very bad thing. It's one of those. It's a story like that where you have the plot being a very dark sort of thing where it's like, hey, there's the creepy thing, and Louise Jameson as Leela gets a really good stuff because this is again a lot of it's placed here because this is still kind of early on for Leela. She's still kind of the savage. She's evolved somewhat to realize science is a thing and understanding of science is important, and she understands why understanding of science is important, if that makes any sense. But because of her savage mind, she takes things still takes that simplistic view, and it actually gives comfort to some of the people on this island, who are going almost insane because of this Stormcrow. Louise Jameson gives a wonderful performance as always. She's always a joy to listen to and just a joy to watch. She's such a fun character as a Leela, and she really just enjoys obviously enjoys what she's doing here in this story. So like it's really, really good. Night of the Stormcrow Part 1 it's a solid start out. There's a big problem is that it almost feels like Part 1 of a 4-part story. It's Part 2 is going to feel overly stuffed because of it. It's a really, really good setup, don't get me wrong. Night of the Stormcrow Part 1 has a solid setup, and it knows like, okay, plot point to plot point to plot point, here's how we map things out, and here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to go to point A to point B to point C. But just that being said, it's almost too much for one episode. It's going to leave too much for the second episode just to complete satisfactorily. So I'm going to give Night of the Stormcrow Part 1 a 9 out of 10. It is the 24th of January 2019, and I just finished listening to Night of the Stormcrow Part 2, the concluding part to Marc Platt's tale of almost cosmic horror. There's this whole thread through Part 2 all about these pockets of no thing. Not nothing, but no thing. Sort of an alien creature that sort of takes away the motivation and will to live. Now, in the last episode, one of the big revelations was that the entire village on this island disappeared, cutting off our characters from the mainland. That's actually a really important story device here, mainly because a lot of the theme of Night of the Stormcrow is this theme, because of the no thing, of helplessness. Even the Doctor at one point succumbs to the idea that he should just leave because there's no point in saving these people. Humans are kind of dumb. He should just hop in his TARDIS and leave and have no more companions and be alone for the rest of his life. And that's because this little pocket of no thing got stuck in his scarf. One of those nice little... It's a good little moment. This morose atmosphere, as portrayed by Tom Baker, is excellent for the story. It really, gives the plot a sense of, allows it to pop as like, hey, this is really dark for these reasons because, the Doctor may die here. He is losing all will to live. This is a really, really big story, to say the least. Even though it's on a very small scale, it's somehow small but big. Yes, that is an oxymoron, of course, but I think if it just sort of makes sense that this is a story where there's an oxymoron. There's this giant Stormcrow. And you know what? It turns out this Stormcrow is an ancient being. The explanation for what the Stormcrow is excellent. It's this ancient being that's going to eat the Earth once the Earth is dead. And oddly enough, the way they defeat it is the Doctor talks to it, basically talks to it. It's an intelligent creature. It understands the language. It ate the village and realized, and the Doctor's able to make it realize, hey, the village is alive. Humanity still has a lot going for it. Maybe you should hold off for a couple billion years because, well, humans are worth saving. They are alive. They're still primitive by, universal standards, but they still have the potential to grow and become, greater than what they are. That message is actually just played through it very, very well. You have this doddery old professor character who was trying to search for knowledge's sake. And that's sort of her fatal flaw, which I don't know if that's really the best way to do a fatal flaw, because I don't think just trying the pursuit of knowledge could in this way could be considered a bad thing. Mainly just because, well, knowledge is incredibly important. It's incredibly important to be able to, figure out things and answers to problems, and figure out, where things may go wrong, where ups and downs may come in. Like, the capacity to learn is extremely important for humanity. People need to realize, there's a place to go. And it's messages like this that really makes Night of the Stormcrow pop as a story. This episode is probably one of the best episodes so far. It's a really nice little conclusion to the story. Even if the first episode has some slight pacing problems, part 2 almost makes up for it in droves. It has 3 minutes more to play with and uses those 3 minutes really well. It's a 33-minute episode because this is, a bonus release, that they aren't necessarily... It is, building to a, we only have this much time to do with, but it knows, Marc Platt is someone who really knows how to use the time he is given very well. And in using that time, he knows that, hey, I only have this much time, I need to make it count, and if I don't make it count, well, then the story's going to suffer for it. He realizes that, literary devices have to be used perfectly. And also say that he really understands the character of Leela, that, her primitive mind sort of makes her less susceptible to this no thing, because she has so much to live for. She's seeing the universe, trying to get knowledge, and her pursuit of knowledge is just a big part of who she is as a character. It's something that she desires. She wants to know. She wants to learn. She wants to figure out that, hey, there's more out there than what was originally in my village. They're in face of evil. There is a big whole wide universe out there just waiting to be explored, and this exploration is very well done. Louise Jameson as once gives a fantastic performance as Leela. She somehow hasn't aged at all, even though this is obviously much after the rest of the TV series has been filmed and produced. And Louise Jameson and Tom Baker still have that great repartee. The guest cast is great. You have Chase Masterson as this uptight supervisor playing an amazing role. She does this amazing, almost a villain of the piece sort of thing. Even if she's not evil, she does an amazing job in it. You have Annabelle as this, or Alan Bell. Yeah, I think her name is Annabelle. I don't remember, as playing this dotty old professor. It's just a really solid cast, a really small cast, but a solid one. And sometimes it's the smallest of casts that can make a story work really, really well. So that being said, I'm going to give Night of the Stormcrow Part 2 a perfect 10 out of 10. And we add up the 2 episodes to give Night of the Stormcrow a final score of 9.5 out of 10. Thank everybody for watching this installment of the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. I would always like to hear from you and your opinions on these stories. And please join me next time when we start a look at a series of box sets similar to the Lost Stories, but telling stories taken from the mind of Doctor Who's greatest, perhaps one of Doctor Who's greatest producers, Philip Hinchcliffe, with the Philip Hinchcliffe Presents range, starting with the first release of the first box set of the range, The Ghosts of GRALSTEAD.